Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy AB. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you guys are new, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. I'm actually filming this video on Halloween, but it's going to come out really early November. And I want to start off the video saying that I think I owe Beetlejuice 2 a big fat old apology, because in my Beetlejuice 2 review video I did close to 2 months ago, maybe, I don't know, I basically labeled it the worst film of 2024 and the worst sequel of 2024, and I firmly believed it at the time until I saw Joker 2. As you guys know, if you follow me on Instagram or heard me mention it a couple times on YouTube, I don't know if I've said anything about it on the streams, I was super hyped up for Joker 2. I watched it and it's so mind-numbingly bad. Like, I cannot believe it was done like this. And yeah, I figured since this is a Joker 2, aka a Joker Folie Deux movie review video, dress up as Joker himself. Or sorry, the not Joker. So yeah, as you guys can tell, there is a spoiler warning ahead for you guys. So if you guys want to go see this movie for yourself, go watch it. It's out on digital right now, literally less than a month after the movie released in theaters. So yeah, it's pretty bad. This movie is basically about Arthur Fleck struggling with his dual identity as Joker and Arthur while he meets the love of his life, Harley Quinn, while incarcerated at Arkham State Hospital. So Joker Folie Deux is basically a jukebox musical, a faux jukebox musical, and it kind of makes sense to me. Like, I know a lot of people are like trashing on a lot of the musical numbers, but I didn't have a problem with them watching them. Like, they were actually pretty interesting, and I loved all the set pieces for these musical numbers. They were great, and I love the playlist. Like, the playlist is amazing. So yeah, basically the whole concept of this movie being a jukebox musical, or just a musical, is that Arthur, since we already know he's crazy and delusional, he's having these delusions of grandeur of these musical number fantasies in his head to help him cope with his situation of being in Arkham. And he's sharing these delusions with Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga, which I'm already going to get out of the way. She did a fantastic job playing Harley Quinn. I will say she was completely underutilized. I wish she had more screen time, and I wish her relationship with Arthur Fleck was kind of more fleshed out. Yeah, he shares these delusional musical numbers in his head with Harley Quinn. And it makes sense because they're both sharing delusions, hence the title Folie Deux, which is a French medical term to my knowledge that means madness for two, or shared madness, which this whole idea was just a crazy, risky idea that I knew straight from the get-go. I had high hopes for this movie, and I was completely let down, and I'm going to tell you why. So again, I need to emphasize, I owe Tim Burton and Beetlejuice 2 an apology for labeling this the worst movie of 2024, or the worst sequel of 2024, because Joker 2 already was worse. It's just worse than Beetlejuice 2. So yeah, apart from my issue with Harley Quinn and Lady Gaga being underutilized to the point where she only had like 22 minutes of screen time in a 2.5 hour long movie. I mean, I get that they had her just because she's Lady Gaga and this was a whole musical idea and Lady Gaga's a singer, but they underutilized her. And her whole relationship with Arthur wasn't entirely fleshed out like, you know, it is in comics and stuff, but that kind of frustrated me. And then they introduced Harvey Dent, and he was like a district attorney lawyer who was trying to get Arthur the death penalty for his 6 murders, which, by the way, they only know of 5 because they didn't, in the movie here, they didn't know that he killed his mom. They don't know he killed his mom. But yeah, Harvey Dent was not utilized as much as I would like him to, because we all know Harvey Dent is Two-Face, and this could have been a great original origin story that had a great impact on how he became Two-Face. Would have had a great impact on the audience, but they kind of touched base on that in the end. But I'll get to that in a minute, but I'm just gonna say, did not really have much of an impact on me. Apart from underutilized characters, the film was kind of boring and claustrophobic because we only really had 2 main settings of the film, apart from the musical number fantasies, which were brilliant set pieces, like Hotel Arkham dance top where Joker and Harley Quinn were dancing on the roof. That was brilliant. I looked forward to those scenes because they were entertaining and they kind of took us out of the boring claustrophobic settings. Like, half of it is basically Arthur incarcerated at Arkham. You have him in the hospital, you have him in certain areas, the courtyard, and the other half is basically him in a courtroom. It's basically just a courtroom drama that was executed poorly. When I mean it was executed poorly, they could have had Arthur find a loophole to make himself seem innocent for the crimes he committed. in the first film. He could have found a legal loophole to get himself free. That's something that Joker would do because he's a criminal mastermind, but all he really did when he was defending himself in the courtroom drama scenes was that he was just talking in circles. And all the courtroom scenes really did was reinstate the significance of the first film, which, I mean, we want some new stuff. We don't want to have a complete rehash in a courtroom scene in most of the sequel. Like, we want to see him actually cause mayhem, and in this film, he doesn't actually kill anyone. He actually just does it in his delusional fantasies. We had a couple characters from the first film that returned for the courtroom segment. We have Sophie Dumond, Arthur's former neighbor, who he was obsessed with and imagined himself in a romantic relationship with. She was basically up there testifying against him because he broke into her apartment, you know, in the scene where it was revealed that he wasn't really in a relationship with her. And she revealed that she was more friendly with his mom, and that his mom had allegedly said a bunch of awful things about Arthur. And honestly, that part, I kind of felt bad for Arthur because, I mean, we already know his mom was bad, but really talking shit behind his back, telling him lies to his face, damn! And of course we got Lee Gill, the guy who played Gary Puddles in the first film, who witnessed his friend and co-worker Gary get murdered by Arthur in his apartment. And his performance was amazing. It was even better than his performance in the first film. And what Arthur really did in the first film really traumatized him, and he's scared. I'm impressed with Lee Gill's performance in that whole 5-minute scene. It was good, and it made me want to cry. And in this movie, instead of Joker manipulating Harley Quinn like he does in the comic book material, or the movies we've seen, or the shows we've seen, it's Harley manipulating Arthur. It's made clear she's not in love with Arthur, she's in love with the Joker. She's in love with the idea of Joker because he causes mayhem. He's basically a symbol in town, and she basically voluntarily commits herself in Arkham just so she could get close to him, because she wanted to be with him, because she was in love with the fact that he shot Murray Franklin on stage. And what she tells Arthur is that she was in an abusive household, kind of like him, and she grew up in the same neighborhood, and that her dad died in a car crash, but then all that's revealed to be a lie, because she lives in a nice area with her parents that are both still alive, and her parents are doctors. Yeah, definitely an interesting take for Harley Quinn. And I have an issue with how they introduced Arthur into the second film here. The first film, they already got to the point that in the final moments of the film, he had fully become Joker, but in this, he regressed back to Arthur, and they're trying to use, and him and his lawyer in the beginning of the film are trying to use the defense that Joker's another personality, like a persona he made up to protect himself from all the trauma and bullying he received. And that was kind of interesting, but not in a good way. We came here to see Joker be Joker. We're not here to see him regress back into Arthur. We want to see him cause mayhem. We want to see him wreak havoc in Gotham. What's kind of weird is that they never even mentioned Thomas Wayne's death or Martha Wayne's death or the fact that Bruce Wayne became an orphan or where his whereabouts are. They just kind of left that alone, which I thought was just weird because that was a pretty big focal point in the first film, was Joker kind of led into Thomas Wayne's death with the movement he inadvertently started, unintentionally started. And the part where he finally decides to represent himself and embrace his Joker persona, it didn't really feel genuine. It felt kind of forced because even when he was in his Joker persona in the courtroom, it was clearly an act. And that was the point that Todd Phillips was going with this movie, is that he's not really Joker. He's not really a criminal mastermind, the kind of dude that would defend himself in a way for him to get out of jail, get him out of the death penalty, get him out of Arkham, get him back on the streets so he can cause havoc again and again and again. Another thing I actually want to bring up that I kind of forgot to do in the beginning of the video was that this movie opened up with kind of a Looney Tunes cartoon-esque kind of cartoon for Joker, where he's basically dancing on stage, causing havoc, and the thing's called Me and My Shadow, so it's kind of just introducing Joker's split personality argument that they brought in. And it was very well, brilliantly animated, and I wish that movies would introduce stuff like that more often. And at one part, Arthur basically insults all the Arkham guards, calling them fat and lazy. And this pisses them off, so when he's brought back to Arkham, they strip him down, and then this whole scene implies that they raped him. What? I'm sorry, Todd Phillips, but for me, that kind of crosses the line. I get you're supposed to make this film all dark and disturbing like the first film, but really, I feel like that kind of crosses the line for me here. And I guess that whole incident in Arkham is the breaking point to where Arthur wants to give up his Joker persona. So he goes out to court the next day and basically renounces his Joker persona, and it angers Harley, and she leaves the courtroom with along of a bunch of his followers. And then as they're like reading off his sentencing, a giant car bomb goes off and blows up the courtroom and kind of scars up a portion of Harvey Dent's face, as I said I was going to get into. Just wanted to wait for this moment. And Arthur gets helped by his supporters who want to help him escape. But then he runs away from them and finds Harley on the stairway near his apartment building. And he wants to run away with her because he's free now, but she rejects him because he's Arthur and he's not Joker. And I did forget to mention that Harley actually mentioned that she was pregnant at one part of the film, which we all don't really know if that's really the case. And Arthur tries to bring it up as she's rejecting him on stairs, and all she does is sing the song, "That's Entertainment," and then she leaves, and it kind of insinuates that she tipped off the cops that Arthur would be up there, and they arrest him and bring him back to Arkham. And then this is where it brings in the very divisive ending for Joker. Arthur gets told at Arkham that he has a visitor, and he thinks it's Lee, which, by the way, I don't think it was Lee. Sadly enough, I think it was Gary visiting, possibly. But before he even gets the chance to see his visitor, some Arkham inmate comes up that we've seen here and there, but he wasn't really that important. He was just kind of staring at the TV when Arthur was on it. A couple background scenes. He comes up and asks Arthur if he wants to hear a joke that he made up. And he tells him a similar joke that ends a similar way that it did when Arthur told that final joke on Murray. And the Arkham inmate stabs Arthur to death. And then he laughs, kind of like Heath Ledger, and carves a smile into his face. What the actual fuck, Todd Phillips? So yeah, the whole idea of the ending is that he's not really Joker. He's just merely a disturbed individual who basically inspired the real Joker. That's the ending that completely blew this movie to pieces. In a way, it just sort of destroyed everything that the first movie did. It makes the first movie feel like that was a waste of time on its own, knowing what we know now about the second film. We don't want that kind of origin story, and it's just, why? This is exactly why this movie sucked even more than Beetlejuice 2. Sorry. And another issue I have with the ending is that the idea of the first film, how they were originally going to end it, was that they were going to have Arthur stand on a car and carve a smile into his face for his supporters. But Christopher Nolan, the director of The Dark Knight, who had Heath Ledger, played the Joker. And that was, in my opinion, the most, hands down, most iconic Joker of all time. He went up to them and was like, "No, you can't do that. That's only for Heath Ledger." But because Christopher Nolan left Warner Brothers, Todd Phillips decided to say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do it somehow in the sequel." And this is how it is. And honestly, it's very disrespectful to Christopher Nolan, and it's very disrespectful to Heath Ledger. God may his soul rest. Rest in peace, my man. And the issue I have with this film is that they were desperately trying to tie this film series into the Dark Knight trilogy. And it just doesn't make sense because the timeline is off and just a bunch of plot holes in it and shit. But yeah, no joke, this was a legit piece of shit film. And again, I apologize to Beetlejuice 2 for giving you that title of worst film of 2024 and worst sequel of 2024. This goes to Joker Folie. So I got some advice that I think we all can learn from. If it ain't broke, don't make a fucking sequel. Fuck you, Todd Phillips, for writing and directing this piece of shit movie. Fuck you, Warner Brothers, for greenlighting this piece of shit movie. You guys are the #1 enemy right now, and you can suck my balls. Hey guys, Editing Abe here. Got a couple things I feel like I should note. I know a lot of people who did movie reviews on Joker 2 had completely trashed on the musical number parts, especially Moist Critical, but for me personally, that wasn't that big of an issue to me. And the film was visually beautiful, but this film flopped financially, and the ending completely sucked, and visuals and the musical numbers did not save the movie. And I should also note, Joaquin Phoenix actually did an amazing job doing this movie. I mean, he's not a bad actor. He did great in this movie like he does in literally every other film. Overall, guys, this movie was just a big waste of time and money, of course. Another thing I do need to mention is that I've heard all over the internet that Todd Phillips on purpose made the ending so divisive because he knew he was going to be pissing off fans of the original film. I don't understand why you would do that, because he was basically saying, shame on you for idolizing Arthur in the first film. Which I don't get why you would do that, because your first film was such a huge success off a budget of $50 to $55 million and you make $1 billion in box office. Like, this is incredibly mind-numbingly bad. Like, why would you do that and just say fuck you to your fans? Like, that is just some awful shit right there. This movie right here got 32% Rotten Tomatoes, which is really bad. That's all, folks. So yeah, you guys have made it to the end of my video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and please subscribe and turn on notification bells so you don't miss a single video. This has been your boy AB, out. Peace out, Rainbow Trouts.